So the thing that's got me this week is assumed positions, or assuming what someone is going to say, either based on something that you yourself have experienced, or that the general tone of how things go. So yesterday I was in the pub. I was chatting to a guy that was, you could just tell he was the worst kind of horrible. It's like he sits next to me and you can tell he's looking to pick an argument. I could just tell that. I could just tell that was the case. He was looking for an argument. And and not just that, but at the end of it, he was like, "Oh, peace." And I was like, "Really?" It's like, it reminds me of like during the pandemic when you would see those like "Be Kind" t-shirts, and it was like they would only be worn by like the worst kinds of people. Anywho, but yeah, so we got into an argument over VAR. And he basically put his point across, which is a very valid point, which is that the officials get it wrong even when they've got the information on screen in front of them, and that people have, and that it's even if the official has it on screen in front of them, they still get it wrong. It's like it slows down the pace of the game. It slows down the things that would happen. I think that part of the issue with it is that with football, how well you can cheat and get away with it is kind of a part of the game. It's a part of the culture of the game anyway, and I don't think that's right. But anyhow, so he had his say, and then I was about to put my point across. And then I said, it comes down to money. And I think that, like, literally those are the only words that I had said at all, was that it comes down to money. That was all I'd said at that point. And then he interrupted me and tried to talk me down based on what he thought was going to come out of my mouth next. And he got it completely wrong, by the way. But he'd assumed that was my position. Just from the phrase, it comes down to money, he'd assumed that was my position, and as well he came up with some other stuff like when you were playing football in the park when you were a kid, were you thinking about money? No, I wasn't. Kids these days, though, they do think about money when because they see it as a route to riches. A lot of them do anyway. But yeah, so he'd presumed what my opinion was. What I was actually going to say was it comes down to money, in so much as the outcome of a football match will slosh millions of pounds one way or another. And so you need to get those decisions like exact. Given how much money and importance is placed on the result of a game, you need to be absolutely sure. Like, I haven't seen anybody. 2 seconds. I haven't seen anybody sue like a referee or the referee company or whoever it is over a wrong decision. I think there's certainly scope to do that. I'd be very interested to see if somebody did that. But I haven't seen like referees or the league or whoever it is sued over a bad decision, which I think that they should be, because a decision can have far-reaching ramifications. It's not just a group of lads having a kickabout on a Saturday afternoon with the geography teacher being referee. It's like literally, it's a very serious sport now. There are very serious pots of money involved. You have to be able to gauge what the actual outcome is, and so you need to be able to say, this is the outcome, and that's the evidence. If you can't see that, you've got no validity. But as I say, he was trying to get me to come out with the point that I'd long since abandoned at this point, because he thought that because of how much he'd interrupted me. I find interrupting as really disrespectful, and as well, I've got a bit of a stammer and it tends to set that off, so I really don't like being interrupted. And so at that point, it kind of it occurred to me, the man's an idiot. Do not lay pearls before swine, as it says in the Bible. And so I didn't. Conversation was over, because he'd idiotically presumed what my point was going to be. Go back a little bit further, and I say it was in summer last year. I met a guy, and he was talking about the conflict between science and religion. And my undergrad was in biomed, and I'm a practicing Catholic. So I've looked into this a lot, and as for the conflict, there isn't one. There is no conflict between science and religion. Religion is there to answer why, science is there to answer how. So they're both there to answer two very different questions. So you only fall into trouble when religion tries to answer how, or when science tries to answer why. This is why I don't like Brian Cox getting poetic, because it's kind of like he's not looking to further science, he is looking to replace religion. But anyway, so when I said there is no conflict and this is the reason why, the guy was kind of trying to prod that situation as if there was a conflict between them. You know, an academic point that I'd resolved in my mind many years ago. But he had seen that kind of usual argument play out online and presumed he knew what my point was going to be. And so I was just I can't speak to him. I cannot have that conversation with him, because he's an idiot. And I used to stop going out if I knew that he was going to turn up at places that, with one particular group of friends. If I knew he was going to be out with that group of friends, I wouldn't have gone out. And then a couple of months later, we've actually sat down and I've actually explained the point to him with friends of mine who were atheists, who are now no longer atheists, and with friends of mine who were religious but are now no longer religious. And same undercurrent of scientific thought running through all of them. So it doesn't stack up for me that he was, but it's an idiotic thing to look at the arguments that somebody would have online and to think that every discussion that a person has is going to result in the same arguments. This is why we are still discussing these things after millennia, because we don't have answers to these questions. We don't have answers to questions about why people cheat in football. We don't have answers to questions about whether or not there is a God. We don't have answers to we do have a lot of answers to medically ethical questions, but we ignore them because they're inconvenient. But generally speaking, that's why we have these discussions. But I've tended to notice more and more people anticipate what a person's position is and what they are going to say before they've actually said it. So it's kind of it shuts the discussion down instantly, because it's essentially a replay of every talking point that has ever gone before. You're not learning anything new. And that's the only place where true idiocy and true stupidity lies, is not listening to what you are about to be, to the information that is being given to you, because you think you already know it. There's no capacity to learn there. If you know everything, you have no capacity to learn. And that is the only truly stupid position.